The council chamber was shaped like an amphitheater carved from a single piece of dark stone, its arcs rising tier by tier, each seat designed for a species with its own physiology. It was a place where light was carefully engineered to flatter the elders and intimidate the petitioners. Commander Maya Halden stood alone at the center, the black of her earth field jacket a stark interruption in the ring of color and ornament. Her team was watching from the observation gallery behind her, hidden by a translucent partition that blurred their faces but not their presence. The Chancellor's voice carried through the layered air without mechanical aid, a harmonized blend of tones so that every species in the chamber would hear it within their own natural auditory range. Commander Halden of Earth, the Chancellor began, you have requested stewardship of Site Gorgon 13. This is a Class 0 death world. Do you comprehend the designation? Maya didn't flinch. Her hands rested loosely at her sides, palms open in a subtle gesture of honesty. I understand, she said. Where I'm from, Class 0 is just another day we call survival. A ripple passed through the assembled representatives, shifting scales, flickering bioluminescence, the slow ripple of membranes. Among them were those who remembered Earth's entry into the Council only a few years before. The newcomers who had disrupted trade negotiations, who had questioned the ethics of resource monopolies, who refused to bow to traditions they found hollow. This was a chance, many hoped, to send humans into a challenge that would humble them. You are aware, said a Karth delegate, its voice filtered through a veil of tendrils, that 17 expeditions have failed on Gorgon 13, total loss of personnel in some cases within days. Gravity exceeds your standard by 30%. The atmosphere contains high concentrations of sulfurous compounds. Oxygen levels are beyond what most carbon-based physiology tolerates long-term. Temperature shifts can exceed 100 degrees within a single cycle. Predators are abundant. Lightning storms are constant. It's not the first time humanity has faced such conditions, Maya replied. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us daily. That's why we're still here. An Ethari representative leaned forward, its translucent body pulsing faintly. You think your resilience is unique? Maya's gaze didn't waver. I think it's suited to this mission. We're not asking for this because we believe it will be easy. We're asking because it's hard, and because there is more on that plateau than storms and rock. That last sentence made the room shift again. She had said what many suspected but few admitted openly. The Council's interest in Gorgon 13 was not for colonization, but for something hidden there. Artifacts. Technology from a civilization older than the Council itself. The official line was that these ruins were unproven myths. The truth was more complicated. A tall, robed figure with 3 eyes spoke from the upper tier. Commander, understand that this mission is not without political consequence. You succeed and Earth gains influence. You fail and Earth's ambitions will be reined in. Maya's answer was immediate. Then we succeed. The Chancellor raised one hand, silencing the chamber. Very well. You will establish a functional outpost on the plateau of Gorgon 13 and maintain operations for 1 galactic year. You will file weekly transmissions for review. You will not weaponize any discovered technology. In return, the Council will consider Earth's elevation to full member status. Maya let the pause stretch a moment, then added, and I request that my team include an ethicist with veto power on all decisions concerning the ruins. A low hiss of surprise rolled around the tiers. An ethicist with veto power was not standard for survival missions, it was standard for historical preservation. An unusual request, the Chancellor said. It's not unusual where I come from, Maya replied. We've learned the cost of ignoring the moral question until after the damage is done. After a brief exchange among the Council's core members, the Chancellor nodded. Approved. The session adjourned. Maya left the chamber with her team falling in beside her. Dr. Amir Vaziri, biologist, Sergeant Tessa Rurk, security, Engineer Leo Navarro, communications officer Hannah Akoy, and Dr. Ruth Calder, ethicist and historian. They walked the long corridor in silence until the doors closed behind them. Tessa broke the quiet first. 17 missions failed. The Council still wants us to try. That means whatever's down there is worth more to them than we are. It also means, Ruth said, they believe they can take it from us if we succeed. Which is why we learn everything before they set foot there, Maya said. We'll decide what they get to know. The Odyssean was not the largest ship Earth could send, but it was the one designed for this mission. Compact, maneuverable, and heavily reinforced, it was equipped with hull vanes to channel lightning into capacitors, a water recycling system that could run for years without resupply, and a modular bay that could become a lab, a workshop, or a greenhouse within hours. Leo had fought to get every modification approved, often in late-night arguments with budget committees who thought storm-proof meant decorative shielding. The journey to Gorgon 13 took 3 weeks. They trained daily in the ship's gym, adjusted their routines to the heavier gravity they would face, and reviewed contingency plans for everything from electrical burns to predator attacks. At night, they gathered in the mess to discuss philosophy and history, a ritual Ruth insisted on. Survival isn't just about keeping your body alive, Ruth said one evening. It's about keeping your choices intact. If we succeed at the cost of becoming something we wouldn't respect, then we failed. The others nodded. They knew she wasn't just talking about the planet. The first sight of Gorgon 13 filled the viewports like a living storm. Clouds churned in stacked layers, each lit from within by bolts of blue-white lightning. The ocean boiled under constant wind. Plateau at the center of their mission stood like an island in the sky, its terraces catching the storm light. Wind shear at entry, Hannah reported. We're going to dance a little. Then let's dance, Leo replied, hands flying over the controls. The ship shuddered as they hit the upper atmosphere. Heat flared across the hull, the lightning masts bleeding off excess charge. Gravity pressed them into their seats. The storm roared around them. Gravity's at 1.3, Amir called. Feels like carrying a heavy pack. Just means we get stronger faster, Tessa said, checking her weapon systems. They broke through the cloud layer and saw the plateau clearly for the first time. Red lichen carpeted the terraces, glowing faintly where lightning had struck. The air shimmered with heat. Landing zone 2 kilometers ahead, Hannah said. Leo guided the ship into a natural hollow between 2 ridges, sheltered from the worst of the wind. The landing was rough, but they touched down intact. The howl of the storm faded to a steady background roar. Maya stood and felt the weight of the planet on her body. All right. First steps are in suits. Test the air before you breathe it. They moved into the airlock, sealing themselves into council-issued environmental suits. The door hissed open and heat hit them like a wall. Dust swirled in the wind, stinging their faceplates. The ground was solid, though every step took more effort. The lichen underfoot sparked faintly as they walked. Amir bent to take a sample. This stuff stores charge from lightning, he said. Could be useful. They deployed the first lightning mast, a slender graphite rod with branching conductors. Minutes later, a bolt struck it and energy flowed into the ship's capacitors. The hum of stored power was almost comforting. Amir's tests showed the air was high in oxygen and sulfur, but breathable. Maya removed her helmet, inhaled, and nodded. It's rough, but survivable. One by one, the others followed suit. The Council's assumption that no species could breathe here was wrong. They began work on the shelter. Leo used composite beams from the ship combined with local stone to build a frame that would flex with the wind. Amir suggested integrating the lichen into the walls for insulation and charge storage. Ruth carved a small marker stone and placed it by the entrance. That's not for us, she said. It's for whoever comes after. By nightfall, the shelter stood anchored deep into the rock. As the temperature dropped sharply, the walls held warmth from the day's stored lightning. Outside, shapes moved at the edge of the light, predators watching but not approaching. Tessa stood at the doorway, scanning the darkness. They'll test us eventually. They always do, Maya said. We'll be ready. She looked out at the storm-lit plateau and thought of the council's faces. Certain this place would break them. They didn't understand. This wasn't hostile territory. It was familiar. "Welcome home," she murmured. The storm had passed in the night, leaving the air charged and dry. At sunrise, Amir was already crouched on the ridge above the shelter, his portable scanner humming. The rest of the team joined him one by one, coffee steaming in the cool morning. "I've been tracking the energy signatures we picked up yesterday," Amir said without looking up. "They're not natural. The frequency patterns are too regular." Leo leaned in, scanning the display. "That's a harmonic. Something's cycling energy intentionally." "It's coming from the plateau's center," Amir continued. "Maybe 2 kilometers northeast, buried deep." "That's where we go," Maya said. She didn't ask if it was dangerous. That was a given here. They packed for a day's travel. Tessa carried her rifle slung but ready. Hannah had a drone linked to her wrist display, and Leo brought a collapsible relay to maintain contact with the ship. Ruth carried nothing but her field slate and a small chisel, a habit from decades of recording history in more than one medium. The trek began across terraces lined with red lichen, the ground humming faintly under each step. The gravity worked on their legs, forcing a steady pace, but their breathing was easier than expected thanks to the oxygen-rich air. Above, clouds twisted into slow spirals, lightning flashing somewhere far off. By midday, they reached a wide basin carved into the plateau. At its center stood a pillar of composite stone unlike anything they had seen, smooth, dark, embedded with metallic veins that glinted in the sun. "Artificial," Leo said immediately. He knelt, running a hand near its surface. "Feels like it's holding a charge." Amir checked his instruments. "It's pulsing, low frequency, almost like a heartbeat." "Heartbeat?" Tessa frowned. "From what?" "Could be a control signal," Amir said. "Could be a greeting." Maya circled the pillar once. "We need to see if it reacts, but we do it carefully." Leo dug into his pack, producing a small actuator, a device designed to mimic biological rhythms. He pressed it gently to the pillar's surface and set it to a slow, steady beat. The response was immediate. Blue lines flared across the pillar's surface, racing outward like veins under skin. The basin trembled. With a deep, resonant tone, a section of the far wall split open, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. "Of course, there's a hidden entrance," Hannah muttered. Maya looked at Ruth. "Thoughts? Whoever built this," Ruth said. "Meant for it to be found, but only by someone who knew how to listen." They descended slowly, the temperature dropping with each step. The walls were made of the same composite material, smooth but not cold. The stairs opened into a vast underground chamber, its scale amplified by the echo of their footsteps. Rows of structures ringed the space, all built with curves and arcs rather than sharp angles. In the center, a raised platform held a dormant holographic projector. Amir brushed dust from a control panel, its surface still faintly warm. "Power's running, minimal but enough." When he activated it, a three-dimensional image filled the chamber, the planet, shown in layers, storms, tectonic lines, atmospheric currents, and overlaid with symbols that none of them recognized. "This isn't just a map," Hannah said, stepping closer. "It's a systems diagram." The projection shifted. Humanoid figures appeared, tall, slender, with elongated limbs and smooth, angular faces. Their skin bore patterns reminiscent of the lichen above. The sequence showed them walking the plateau, tending to machines that drew lightning into massive storage arrays. Ruth's voice was low. "They lived here, thrived here. They're not in council records," Maya said. "They are now," Ruth replied, "in ours." The display changed again, showing the Nahhevi, the name appearing in translated script after a few seconds, slowly altering their own biology. They thickened bones, adapted lungs, enhanced neural pathways until finally their forms became almost unrecognizable. In the last images, they no longer appeared physical at all, only patterns of light dispersing into the air. "They transcended," Amir whispered. Maya stood still, absorbing it. "This archive is the reason the council kept sending expeditions here." Which means if we tell them everything, Tessa said, they'll take it. Maya looked at each of them in turn. Then we don't tell them everything, not yet. No one argued. They spent the next hours exploring the surrounding chambers. Some were workshops filled with tools still neatly arranged. Others contained sealed storage, inscriptions etched into the walls in the flowing script that their translation software was only beginning to parse. One smaller room held something different. At its center sat a structure the size of a large seed, resting on a low pedestal. It was covered in fine micro-perforations, its surface faintly iridescent. As they approached, it exhaled a mist so thin it seemed to vanish instantly. The air above it shimmered and particles gathered into two shapes, an open hand and a shallow cup. "It's a symbol," Ruth said. "An offer or a test." "What's it asking?" Tessa asked. "That you show your hands are empty," Ruth replied, "and that you have a vessel worthy of what it might give." Maya stepped forward, palms open. "We will not take more than we can carry in our character." The shapes shifted. The cup inverted and became a mirror. Each of them saw themselves, then faces behind them, children, elders, strangers not yet born. "It's saying," Ruth murmured, "that any gift it gives belongs to them too." The shimmer faded, leaving the seed dormant again. Amir checked his readings. "This thing's doing something to the air, not harmful, more like it's learning about us." They left the chamber without touching it. Back at the surface, the wind had died to a whisper. At the edge of the light cast by the shelter, Tessa spotted movement. Predators, tall, long-limbed, their hides ridged like armor, stood watching. Two juveniles edged closer, mimicking the low hum of the lightning masts. One juvenile scratched at the dust, leaving intersecting lines. Maya recognized the pattern, similar to the basin's map. She crouched, drew 3 interlocking circles in the dirt, and placed a small bolt at the center. The predators watched. The juveniles tilted their heads, then the group withdrew silent. "Level 1 passed," Tessa said. Inside the shelter, Hana's drone displayed the pillar's signal. A new path had appeared in the basin's map, leading deeper underground to a chamber marked with symbols their software translated as "keeping score with mercy." Maya studied it for a long moment. "Tomorrow," she said, "we learn what that means." The morning came without wind, the sky a pale ochre sheet. The plateau was never quiet, but today the storms had moved far to the north, leaving the air heavy with the stillness that precedes a change. In the shelter's mess, Maya spread the projection from the basin across the table. The new path shimmered in pale blue lines, leading from the pillar into the deep, toward a chamber labeled in the Nahhevi script that their translator insisted meant "keeping score with mercy." Ruth traced the path with one finger. "This isn't a vault or a workshop, it's an accounting room." "Accounting for what?" Tessa asked. "For exchanges," Ruth replied. "Not just material, moral. The Nahhevi weren't keeping ledgers of grain, they were keeping ledgers of responsibility." Amir looked skeptical. "You think they quantified ethics?" "I think they documented how they balance taking with giving," Ruth said. "It's not so different from what we do when we decide who gets help first in an emergency or which project gets funding." "That," Leo said, "is exactly where things get ugly." "Which," Ruth said, "is why we're going." They packed light. This would be a walk into the plateau's deep interior, where air might be different, gravity might fluctuate, and every turn could be a puzzle. Hana deployed 2 drones in advance, sending them through the basin entrance to scout the route. The descent began at the pillar. It greeted them again with a low hum, the blue veins lighting in sequence before the seam in the far wall opened. The stairs dropped into a corridor of curved stone, the walls carrying subtle grooves like fingerprints on an ancient tool. They passed the sand classroom, still holding the marks from the previous day's lesson, and followed the new line on their slates. It wound through passages narrower than before, where the air felt thicker, almost humid. Veins of mineral ran along the walls, sparking faintly when their lights brushed them. The floor sloped down into a chamber whose proportions immediately calmed the eye. A long oval, benches built into the walls, and at the center, a low table covered in clay discs. Each disc bore a mark. Some were etched with what looked like numbers, others with abstract shapes, others with the kind of pictograms that could mean 2 things at once depending on who read them. Above the table, the particulate shimmer formed a new image. A set of scales, balanced, then tipping slightly, then returning to center. "It's a ledger," Ruth said softly. Leo picked up one of the discs. It was warm, as though it had been sitting in sunlight. "They kept physical tokens, not just data." "That's deliberate," Ruth said. "You can't ignore a physical token the way you can scroll past a number on a screen." Amir walked to a groove in the wall where more discs sat stacked neatly. "These are blank, waiting to be used." The particulate scales shifted, showing now two figures, one receiving something, one giving, the images repeated with variations. Sometimes the receiver returned something greater, sometimes less, sometimes nothing at all. The scales tipped accordingly. "They're asking us to show how we balance our own exchanges," Ruth said. "What do we put on the discs?" Hannah asked. "Something true," Ruth replied. "An action, a promise, something we've taken and what we've given back." Tessa muttered, "Feels like confession." "It is," Ruth said, "but it's also an agreement to do better." Maya picked up a blank disc. She thought of the predators on the ridge, of the juvenile scratching a pattern in the dust. "We owe them a perimeter that keeps them out without harming them," she said. She drew a line and a small arc, her shorthand for the charged wire and the open path beyond. She placed the disc in the center of the table. Leo followed. "I owe this planet that if I learn to take its energy more efficiently, I won't use it to build weapons. I'll use it to power homes, hospitals, archives." He etched a spiral, his personal mark for stored lightning. Amir hesitated longer. "If I take healing methods from this place," he said finally, "I will not use them to send people back into harm faster. Healing should end cycles, not restart them." He etched a wave for breath. Ruth drew a seed. "I owe the next generation a world where our ledgers are public, where we're accountable not just to those alive now, but to those who will inherit what we leave." Hannah's disc was simple, 3 dots connected. "I owe my colleagues the truth, but I also owe our mission the discretion to hold some truths until they can't be used to harm." The particulate shimmer pulsed once, as if acknowledging. The scales balanced, then dissolved into a new pattern, a doorway opening. The far wall of the chamber unsealed, revealing a narrow balcony that overlooked a vast space below. Light poured upward from an array of devices arranged in concentric circles. It wasn't blinding. It was the kind of light that made you want to look at it longer, as if it carried understanding in its glow. They descended a ramp to the floor. The devices were tall, their surfaces patterned with the same micro-perforations as the seed machine. Between them ran a network of shallow channels filled with a viscous liquid that caught the light and refracted it into slow-moving patterns. "This is power distribution," Leo said, awe in his voice, "but it's ethical power distribution." "Explain," Tessa said. Leo gestured to the channels. "See how it splits. Some routes are short, direct, they feed the nearest devices. Others loop further, feed areas at the edge. It's like they built in efficiency and on purpose, so no part of their system went without." Ruth smiled faintly. "Mercy in engineering. They designed for equity, not just efficiency." "They gave up some output to keep balance," Leo said. "Any corporate board on Earth would call that waste." "Any civilization that wants to last calls it survival," Ruth said. They walked the outer ring, examining devices. Some were dormant, others hummed softly. Amir found a panel with symbols and a series of small openings. "This is interactive," he said. "You can adjust the flow." "Don't," Maya said immediately. "We don't change a system we don't understand." Amir nodded reluctantly. Hannah's drone pinged. "We've got movement topside. The predators again. Same group as before, I think. No aggression yet." "Keep monitoring," Maya said. "They are watching us as much as we're watching them." They spent hours mapping the chamber, recording the layout and inscriptions. Ruth paused often to make rubbings of wall carvings. "They wanted this knowledge preserved," she said, "not hoarded." As they prepared to leave, the particulate shimmer reappeared above the center of the floor. This time it formed an image of a hand holding water, the droplets spilling evenly in all directions. Then it shifted, showing the same hand clenching into a fist, the water spilling only on one side. "They are asking," Ruth said, "which one will be." "They are warning," Maya corrected. This isn't just a lesson, it's a filter. If we fail it, we don't get access to the next layer. Back at the surface, the wind had picked up again, carrying the metallic scent of distant lightning. Hana relayed the day's report to the council, edited carefully. She spoke of continued exploration, of studying local energy storage methods, of predator behavior. She said nothing of the ledgers, the chamber, or the mercy built into Nahhevi engineering. The reply came faster than expected. The council's voice was smooth, but the undertone was sharp. Commander Halden, our sensors indicate significant energy flux in your sector. We request a full live feed for hazard analysis. We can dispatch a scientific team to assist. They want to see everything, Hana said after cutting the channel. They want to own it, Tessa said. Maya's decision was instant. We decline the live feed, offer them a summary after peer review, we hold the rest. They'll know we're holding back, Hana warned. Good, Maya said. Let them wonder why. That night in the dim of the shelter, Ruth wrote on her slate, "Mercy is power with memory." She left it where anyone could see. The storms returned after midnight, lightning striking the masts in steady rhythm. Out beyond the perimeter, the predators' silhouettes moved in the flashes, watching, waiting. And in the basin below, deep in the plateau, the scales in the ledger room tilted once, then returned to center. The first sign came as a coded ping on Hana's console. The council was sending a priority transmission, tagged for immediate acknowledgement. She routed it to the shelter's central display, and the image of Chancellor Vorik appeared, flanked by two other high-ranking delegates. All three wore the diplomatic neutrality of people who had already decided on their course. Commander Halden, Vorik began without pleasantries. Our data indicates that the energy phenomena in your sector exceed previously recorded levels. For safety and for the sake of the Council's scientific mission, we are dispatching a multidisciplinary team to assist you. They will arrive in 48 standard hours. Maya stood with her hands clasped loosely behind her back. We appreciate the concern, Chancellor, but conditions are stable. Our team is fully capable of continuing without reinforcement. Vorik's eyes narrowed slightly. This is not optional. The Council has invested significant resources into this mission. We will not risk the loss of potential discoveries due to incomplete field expertise. Ruth, standing just off-camera, wrote something on her slate. They've already decided what we found is theirs. She tilted it so Maya could see. Maya kept her tone even. We will receive them. But understand, Chancellor Gorgon 13 isn't forgiving. We've adapted because we respect that. If your people can't adapt as quickly, they'll be in danger. We trust your judgment in ensuring their safety, Vorik said. The connection cut before she could respond. Silence hung in the shelter. Tessa broke it first. They're coming to take control. Not if we make sure they can't, Leo said. We've got storm-adapted systems they can't just walk in and use. We lock down anything tied to the Nahhevi tech. Hana was already bringing up schematics. We can partition our network, create a dummy feed for them, show enough to look cooperative without giving away the real systems. Amir glanced at Ruth. We can't just hide things. We need a reason that's not just tactical, something we can stand on if this becomes political. Ruth nodded. The Nahhevi left tests for a reason. They didn't give their knowledge to anyone who couldn't prove they'd use it responsibly. If we hand over what we've learned without making sure the Council understands that, we'd be failing the test ourselves. Maya looked at each of them. So we do both. We protect the technology, and we prepare to explain in a way that forces them to see the bigger picture. The next day, the pillar in the basin pulsed again. This time, the blue veins lit in a pattern none of them had seen before, a spiral tightening inward, then releasing outward. The seam in the wall opened without them touching it. Another invitation, Ruth said. They descended past the sand classroom and the ledger chamber, following a new path illuminated on their slates. It led them to a circular room whose walls were lined with shallow alcoves. In each alcove was an object, not identical, but similar enough to be related. Some looked like bowls, others like open boxes, others like intricate lattice frameworks. At the center of the room was a pedestal, empty. The particulate shimmer appeared above it, forming an image, two figures standing across from each other. One placed an object in the other's hands. The second figure examined it, then passed it back. "It's a trust exchange," Ruth said. "They're asking us to give something and to accept something with the understanding it comes back." Leo walked to one of the alcoves, studying a lattice of fine metal strands. "These are delicate. Whatever we take, we have to return exactly as we found it. And whatever we give," Maya said, "has to survive here until it's returned." They debated for a long minute. What could they leave that would mean something? Something that represented humanity but also carried no risk if examined. Ruth finally held up her slate. "A story," she said. "Written here in symbols they can already translate. A story about choice, about taking the longer road to spare harm." She used the chisel to etch it into a thin plate of composite they had brought for repairs. The tale was simple. A village deciding to reroute its water source to avoid flooding a neighboring valley, even though it meant a year of harder work. They placed the plate on the pedestal. The shimmer brightened, then shifted to the alcoves. A bowl floated gently into the center space. Its surface was iridescent like the seed machine, but patterned with shallow grooves spiraling inward. Amir examined it without touching. "It's an information vessel encoded in the grooves." "Then we take it," Maya said. "Study it, and when we return it, we leave something more." As they carried it back to the shelter, Ruth remarked quietly, "This is the kind of exchange the Council won't understand. To them, taking is permanent." "Then maybe this is how we teach them," Maya said. 48 hours later, the Council ship broke through the storm layer, its shields scattering lightning like water off glass. It was larger than the Odyssean, a mobile base in its own right. It landed a half-kilometer from the human settlement, deploying a team of 30 in pristine environmental suits. Maya met them at the perimeter, her team at her side. The lead delegate, a tall Saravan with pale green skin, looked around with thinly veiled surprise at the thriving structures, storm-adapted, lichen-insulated, powered entirely by captured lightning. "You've done more than establish a basic outpost," the delegate said. "We adapt quickly," Maya replied. "Your people will need to do the same if they want to stay." The Saravan's gaze sharpened. "We will begin our survey immediately." Maya gestured toward the structures nearest the perimeter. "We've prepared workspace for you here. It's tied into our environmental controls, but not our primary systems. The storms here can be unpredictable." It was a half-truth. The partitioned network would keep the Nahhevi systems invisible. Over the next hours, the Council team set up their equipment, scanning the terrain and running atmospheric tests they could have done from orbit. The humans kept their distance, focusing on their own work, studying the bowl from the trust exchange room. Its grooves, when scanned, revealed layered data, not technical schematics, but stories, histories, decisions made and their consequences, recorded without judgment but with context. Ruth's eyes lit as she read one. This is their moral archive. They recorded moments where choice defined outcome. "Like what?" Tessa asked. One entry is about a community deciding not to exploit a mineral deposit because doing so would destabilize the ground under another settlement, Ruth said. They passed on immediate gain to preserve mutual safety. Leo whistled softly. "Imagine if our corporations thought like that." "They can," Ruth said, "if we show them why it's survival, not charity." That evening, as lightning flickered over the plateau, Maya was summoned to a meeting with the Council delegation. They gathered in one of the temporary domes they'd erected, its interior climate-controlled to perfection and sterile in a way the human structures never were. "We've detected significant subterranean structures," the Saravan began. "Your reports have been selective." "I've reported all relevant findings," Maya said evenly. "That's a matter of perspective," the delegate replied. "If you've encountered technology, it falls under Council jurisdiction for preservation and study." "Preservation," Ruth echoed from beside her. "Does that include passing tests left by the creators to ensure the knowledge is used wisely, or does it mean locking it in a vault until someone can weaponize it?" The room cooled. "Commander," the Saravan said, The Council cannot be bound by the intentions of a species that no longer exists. They exist in the lessons they left, Maya said. And on this world, the lessons are as real as the storms. Ignore them, and the planet will remind you. The delegates exchanged glances. One leaned forward. Are you refusing to share your discoveries? I'm offering to share them under the same conditions the Nahhevi set, Maya said. Pass the tests, prove you can balance taking with giving, otherwise you're not ready for what's down there. The Saravan's expression was unreadable. We will consider your proposal. That night the storms returned with full force. In the shelter the bowl pulsed faintly, as if reacting to the weather. The grooves shifted, revealing a new story, a warning about those who took without balance. It ended with an image of empty hands, not open in trust, but empty because there was nothing left to give. Maya looked at it for a long time before speaking. Tomorrow we show them this, and we see what they make of it. Ruth nodded slowly. It's the kind of truth you can't fake your way past. Outside, the lightning masts drank from the sky. On the ridge, the predators watched, their eyes catching each flash. And deep beneath the plateau, the Nahhevi systems waited, listening as they had for centuries. For the ones who would understand that mercy was not weakness, but the highest form of strength. The storm broke without warning. Lightning tore the sky into jagged halves, the wind snapping so hard the perimeter towers groaned against their mounts. The humans had learned to read the signs, to pack away fragile systems before the worst hit. The Council team had not. By the time the first shockwave rolled across the plateau, several of their survey modules had been ripped from the ground. Hana was in the comms station when the distress ping came through. Council's lead delegate's voice was clipped, almost accusing. 3 of our people are trapped beyond the southern ridge. Environmental suits are compromised. We require immediate assistance. Meyer arrived within seconds. Where exactly? Coordinates transmitting now. Hana frowned. That's almost at the edge of the basin, storm shadow. We can get there, but the return will be against the wind. Amir scanned the feed. The ridge runoff is building. In 20 minutes, the whole channel will flood. We can make it in 15, Tessa said, already strapping on her harness. Leo shook his head. Not if we bring them all back at once. 2 are injured. We'll need to stabilize them before moving. The Council delegate cut in sharply, then prioritized the able-bodied. We can send a second team for the rest once the storm passes. Ruth's voice cut through like steel. If the channel floods, there is no second team. They'll be gone. That is not a certainty, the delegate replied. It's certain enough, Ruth said. We either all go for all of them now or we don't go at all. Maya's gaze swept the room. We go for all of them. The Council delegate opened his mouth, but Maya's tone closed the argument. If you want to survive here, you do it on the terms that keep people alive. The rescue team moved like a single organism. Hana piloted a drone ahead to map the fastest route. Amir carried a portable med unit. Leo shouldered the power relay for the emergency shelter. Tessa led, rifle ready, not for enemies, but for any wildlife displaced by the storm. They found the trapped Council members huddled in the lee of a rock outcrop. One suit was torn across the leg, the other cracked along the helmet seal. The third member, a Saravan youth, clutched a data core like it was worth more than air. Amir didn't waste time. He patched the suit leg with a polymer seal, injected stabilizers into the one with the helmet crack, and shoved an auxiliary oxygen mask into place. You can walk if we support you. Move. The youth hesitated. My work. Your work is breathing, Tessa snapped. She yanked the core from his hands, slung it over her shoulder. You'll get it back when you're above ground. They fought the wind back toward the shelter. Halfway up the ridge, the runoff roared into life below them, a wall of water carrying stone and debris. The spray hit their suits in freezing bursts. Twice, Maya felt the pull of the wind try to take her footing. The last 100 meters were the worst. The injured slowed them, the ridge narrowed. Leo anchored a line and they clipped in one by one, hauling themselves across while the storm tried to shove them into the churning void. When they finally stumbled through the shelter's airlock, Hana slammed it shut behind them. The wind screamed outside, unheard through the walls. Amir went straight to Med. They'll recover. Suit puncture was clean, no contamination. Maya turned to the council delegate, who had been pacing by the comms console. "They're alive, all of them." The delegate hesitated before speaking. "You endangered your team to save two who could not contribute to the mission." Ruth's laugh was short and sharp. "You mean we proved that we don't treat people like defective equipment?" "That was not my meaning," the delegate said stiffly. "It's exactly what you meant," Ruth replied. "And it's exactly why the Nahhevi wouldn't give you what's down there." The storm lasted 2 full days. In that time, the Nahhevi systems made their move. On the second night, the pillar in the basin flared brighter than they had ever seen. Lightning struck it directly, the blue veins glowing hot white for several seconds before fading. In the morning, a new path appeared in their slates, this one marked with the symbol for trial. The humans gathered at the edge of the basin. The council delegation arrived moments later, uninvited but clearly determined not to be left out. Maya spoke to her team quietly. "They want to see what we do. Fine, let them." The path led deep into the plateau through twisting corridors that seemed to narrow and widen unpredictably. They entered a vast hall whose ceiling was lost in shadow. At its center stood 2 pedestals, each holding an object. One was a crystalline sphere glowing faintly blue, the other a dull black cube with sharp edges. The particulate shimmer formed above them. 2 groups of figures. One group reached for the sphere, which lit brighter, then dimmed and dispersed evenly among them. The other group took the cube, it grew heavier, and they began to collapse under its weight. Ruth translated softly, "They're asking us to choose which burden to carry." The council delegate stepped forward immediately. "The cube is dense. It likely contains concentrated energy, which will crush you if you take too much," Ruth said. "And the sphere?" the delegate asked. "Shared energy," Leo said. "Distributed, no one gets all of it, but no one gets none." The delegate frowned. "Distributed power is diluted power. The council cannot operate on half measures." "And that," Maya said, "is why you don't get to choose." She stepped to the sphere, lifted it in both hands. The glow spread instantly up her arms, through her suit, branching into the rest of her team as they touched her shoulders. Even Tessa's usual reserve cracked. She exhaled as the warmth settled into her bones. The council delegate stood apart, untouched. The shimmer shifted, forming the Nahhevi scales. The side holding the sphere stayed balanced. The side holding the cube cracked, spilling its contents into nothing. The hall's far wall opened. Inside was a chamber lined with archives, not physical books or devices, but suspended arrays of light, each one a self-contained memory. The air thrummed with it. Ruth's voice was reverent. "This is the deep record, every moral choice they made, stored and linked." Leo ran a scanner. "It's not just history, it's predictive. You feed in a scenario, it shows probable outcomes based on centuries of precedent." Maya turned to the council delegate. "You wanted technology, here it is, but it comes with the understanding that every use is measured against these records." The delegate's jaw tightened. "We will review this." "No," Ruth said, "you will live it, or you get nothing." That night back in the shelter, the rescued Saravan youth approached Maya. "You could have left us." "We don't work like that," Maya said. "Why?" She looked past him to where the bowl from the trust exchange sat on its stand. "Because mercy isn't a gift, it's a debt we pay forward. You survive here by making sure the next person gets the chance to make the same choice." The youth was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "The council doesn't see it that way." "They will," Maya said, "or they won't survive here at all." Outside, the plateau was quiet for once. The predators stood at the ridge again, watching. And this time, one of the juveniles scratched a single spiral into the dust before they melted back into the darkness. The plateau had been still for 2 days, the kind of deceptive calm that Ruth called the deep breath before the real storm. The council delegates had grown restless in the lull, moving further into the basin under the guise of surveying. Hana's drones tracked them quietly, catching glimpses of their tech specialists scanning the walls near the ledger chamber. Maya confronted the lead delegate that morning. "You're probing the Nahhevi systems without guidance." "We are conducting research within the council's rights," the Saravan replied smoothly. Your interpretation of these ruins is not the only valid one. You're going to trigger something you don't understand, Maya said. The delegate gave a faint smile. That is why we have safeguards. Ruth, standing at Maya's side, muttered, the Nahhevi had better ones. The trigger came at dusk. A deep vibration rolled through the basin, not like the low hum of the pillar, but sharper, pulsing in a rhythm that made the skin crawl. The blue veins along the walls flashed once, twice, then dimmed to a sullen red. Hana's console lit with a warning, Containment Protocol Delta, cross-party initiation required. Leo swore under his breath. That's a lockout, they've sealed the lower chambers. Not just sealed, Ruth said, scanning the glyphs. They've activated a trial, and it's not for one team, it's for everyone present. What happens if we don't pass? Essa asked. The system shuts down permanently, Ruth said. No more access, maybe worse. Maya turned to the council delegate. Congratulations, you just put us all in the same boat. The path lit in red along their slates, leading them down through twisting corridors they had never explored. The air grew warmer, laced with a metallic tang. They emerged into a vast circular hall dominated by a single structure, two massive interlocking rings suspended in mid, rotating slowly in opposite directions. Between the rings floated a lattice of light, constantly shifting. Segments flared bright, then dimmed like a heartbeat. Ruth's eyes widened. It's a balance engine, Nahhevi version of a failsafe. The particulate shimmer appeared, showing two groups, one human, one alien, each holding half of a broken bridge. They worked separately, building in their own direction, but the pieces never met. Then the image shifted. The two groups joining their halves, the bridge completing, the shimmer turning green. They're telling us the only way forward is together, Ruth said. The council delegate's expression was unreadable. We are prepared to collaborate. Maya snorted. You're prepared to use us, different thing. But there was no choice. The engine pulsed again, and the floor split into two concentric platforms, one beneath the humans, one beneath the council team. Between them yawned a deep chasm. From the walls, panels slid open, revealing stacks of components, crystal rods, jointed frames, plates engraved with Nahhevi script. A timer appeared above the chasm, a sequence of descending glyphs, each vanishing after a heartbeat. They want us to assemble something, Leo said, scanning the parts. But it's incomplete on both sides. We've got maybe 60% of what we need. Then we trade, Maya said, quickly. The first exchanges were clumsy. The humans sent over a frame segment. The council returned a rod they had no use for. But mistrust ran deep. Each side hesitated, second-guessed. The timer bled away precious moments. The chasm between them began to fill with a shimmering haze. Ruth checked her scanner. That's a destabilization field. When it reaches us, the platform collapses. Then move, Maya snapped. The humans focused on their half, a curved arch of crystal and metal designed to lock into the alien half. But without precise alignment, the whole thing would fail. Ruth called across the gap. We need your measurements for the connection joint. The council tech hesitated, then shouted back dimensions. Hana translated them into their model. Leo adjusted the frame, locking the rods into place. Pieces began moving faster between the platforms, sometimes thrown across the gap, sometimes slid along hastily rigged cables. Sweat beaded under helmets despite the warm air. The timer glyphs fell faster. With less than a quarter left, both halves were complete, but the final joint, the locking core, was nowhere to be found. They've split it, Ruth said, scanning frantically. Half here, half there. Then we put them together, Maya said. She and the council delegate moved at the same time, each carrying their half to the edge of the chasm. The haze had risen to knee height, humming faintly against their suits. Without a word, they both leaned in. Pressing the halves together, the lock clicked and the core flared to life. The rings above them accelerated, spinning until the lattice of light solidified into a perfect bridge between the platforms. The haze receded. The particulate shimmer reappeared. The two groups stood together, the completed bridge behind them. The image pulsed once, then dissolved. The red veins along the walls faded back to blue. Back at the surface, the council delegate approached Meyer outside the shelter. The wind was picking up again, carrying the scent of rain. "You could have held back," the delegate said. "Let us fail. And then we all lose," Maya replied. The delegate studied her for a long moment. "The council values efficiency. Mercy is not usually part of our calculations." "It should be," Maya said, "because one day the side you think you can afford to lose might be the only one that can save you." The delegate didn't answer, but he didn't walk away either. Far across the plateau, lightning struck the pillar. The blue veins glowed steadily this time, as if the planet itself approved. The plateau was never quiet for long. 3 days after the balance engine trial, the pillar pulsed again, not in the slow, measured rhythm they'd come to know, but in rapid bursts, each one reverberating through the bedrock. Hana's console flared with a new symbol, Scenario Sigma Integrity Evaluation. Ruth read it aloud. "Integrity evaluation. This isn't about building or fixing. It's about what we choose when it matters." The council delegate stepped into the shelter's main chamber, his posture less rigid than usual. "We work together again, then?" Maya studied him for a beat. "If you mean that, you'll have to prove it." The Nahhevi path led them to a canyon at the plateau's far edge, a place neither team had explored. The walls glistened faintly as if infused with the same crystalline veins as the pillar. In the canyon's center rose a spire, not as massive as the pillar, but segmented, with channels running vertically like arteries. As they approached, the particulate shimmer formed in the air. This time the images were stark, 2 settlements, each suffering from environmental collapse, one flooded, one scorched by fire. Between them stood a single conduit that could carry resources, water, energy, materials, but only in one direction at a time. "They're simulating a scarcity scenario," Ruth said quietly. "We have enough to save one completely or split it and risk losing both." The council tech studied the image. "The optimal choice is to prioritize the one with greater population density." "That's the math," Leo said. "It's not the whole equation." The shimmer shifted, showing a third image, the group making their choice and the survivors or the graves that followed. The simulation engaged instantly. Structures rose around them, holographic but solid to the touch. One settlement streets were ankle-deep in rushing water, the other's air shimmered with heat so intense it distorted vision. Amir's instruments confirmed the stakes. "These aren't illusions for us. The environmental conditions are real enough to kill if we leave people too long." "They've populated them," Hana said, voice tight. "Constructs, simulated people." The council delegate's eyes narrowed. "Simulations." Maya shook her head. "If the Nahhevi are testing us, it's because they expect us to treat them like they are real." The timer glyphs appeared above the spire. 15 minutes. The council moved fast toward the flooded settlement. They deployed pump drones, cutting channels to drain the water. It was efficient, targeted, and left the burning settlement untended. The humans split immediately. Maya took Leo and Tessa into the heat, while Ruth coordinated with Amir to rig temporary barriers against the flood. The air scorched lungs, the ground hot enough to blister through boots. They set up mist cannons, redirected limited water stores from their own reserves. 5 minutes in, both efforts were stalling. The council's drones couldn't keep up with the rising water. The humans' mist cannons ran dry faster than expected. Hana's voice cracked over comms. "We can't hold both like this." Maya turned toward the council team across the canyon. "We need cross-support. Send 2 drones to the fire." The delegate hesitated. "That will slow our progress." "It will save lives," Maya said. He didn't move. Ruth's voice cut in, calm but sharp. "If you fail one side completely, you fail the test." That landed. The delegate gestured to his team and 2 drones broke off, skimming across the canyon. They deployed mist into the burning air, buying the humans precious minutes. The balance was precarious. Every decision, which building to reinforce, which area to abandon, felt like cutting a thread in a web already fraying. The Nahhevi timer bled away. With 3 minutes left, the spire pulsed violently. The shimmer appeared again, showing the conduit switching directions. It was a warning. The resources would only flow once more. The council tech looked to the delegate. "We can finish the flood control if we get the last surge." And lose the fire entirely, Maya said. The delegate's gaze flicked between the two settlements. The larger population will rebuild faster, Maya finished. If they lose everything but live, the fire's people won't survive another 2 minutes without full output. He hesitated. Ruth stepped closer. This isn't about numbers. It's about whether you can stand knowing you let someone die because it was easier to explain on paper. The delegate closed his eyes, then exhaled sharply. Route to the fire. The surge hit the mist cannons like a tidal wave of relief. Steam billowed as the worst of the flames died. On the other side, the flood rose again, swallowing lower structures, but most of the simulated people had already been moved to higher ground. Both sides survived, battered but alive. The shimmer returned. It showed the settlements not as they were in the crisis, but years later rebuilt, trading across the conduit, stronger for having both endured. Then it dissolved. The canyon's illusions fell away. The spire dimmed to its resting state. The test was over. Back at the shelter, the council delegate approached Meyer in the dim glow of the lightning masts. "I chose against the math," he said. "You chose for the people," Maya replied. He was silent for a long moment. "The council will not like that." "Then they'll fail the next test," Maya said simply. A faint smile ghosted across his face. "Perhaps, unless we can teach them." The wind shifted, carrying the first scent of an approaching storm. Maya looked toward the pillar in the basin. The blue veins there glowed steadily like a heartbeat. The Nahhevi were watching, and perhaps for the first time so was the council, not to take, but to understand. The storm that swept across the plateau that night was unlike any they had seen. Lightning struck in patterned arcs, each flash synchronized with the pillar's glow. The air was thick, not with rain, but with a pressure that made every breath feel weighted. Then the pillar's light shifted, blue bleeding into gold. Ruth stared at it like she'd been waiting her whole life. "That's the Nahhevi color for succession. We're about to meet the final trial." Hana's console flashed with the symbol, "Final Custodian Trial, Irreversible Outcome." Maya read it twice, then looked to the council delegate. "If you're coming, you commit now. No sabotage, no hidden recorders. You walk out with what we all agree on, or you don't walk out." The delegate didn't argue this time. Agreed. The path took them deeper than ever before into a chamber so vast their helmet lights disappeared before touching the walls. In the center stood a single monolith, taller than any structure on the plateau, covered in shifting Nahhevi script. It pulsed slowly like a giant sleeping heart. The particulate shimmer formed above them, showing two possible futures. In the first, the humans and council delegates took control of the monolith, flooding their civilizations with Nahhevi technology. Starships expanded across the galaxy in decades. Weapons beyond comprehension tipped the balance of every war. The plateau darkened, storms grew erratic, the pillar's light went out. In the second future, the monolith was left sealed. The plateau thrived, its systems intact, storms regular. The Nahhevi archives remained, accessed only in moments of true need, their power a guiding star rather than a weapon. Leo let out a low breath. "So it's the ultimate temptation, all or enough." The shimmer shifted again, showing a single key, half blue, half gold, floating above the monolith. Beneath it, two pedestals glowed, one marked with the Nahhevi spiral for share, the other with the jagged glyph for seize. "They're not asking us to build," Ruth said softly. "They're asking us to choose." The council techs moved first toward seize. "We could end famine, end disease, stop wars before they start. Or start the worst ones anyone's ever seen," Tessa said flatly. The council delegate frowned. "You think too little of us." "No," Maya said. "I think exactly enough." She walked to the share pedestal, running her fingers over the spiral. Nahhevi didn't give this to just anyone who survived their storms. They gave it to those who understood that survival isn't the same as domination. The council delegate's voice was quieter now. "And if the galaxy doesn't deserve this power, then it doesn't get it," Maya said. The monolith's pulse quickened, the room trembling. A low tone vibrated through their chests. The shimmer appeared once more, now showing each of them as they truly were stripped of uniforms, ranks, politics, just people standing in front of a choice. The council delegate's gaze met Maya's. For a long moment no one moved. Then he stepped to the share pedestal. The room shifted instantly. The key dissolved into light, flowing into both pedestals at once. The monolith's surface bloomed with gold and blue patterns, and a voice, not sound but thought, filled every mind. Custodianship is not possession, it is promise. You are now bound to keep the storms steady, the archives guarded, and the bridge between need and greed unbroken. The floor lit beneath them, tracing their steps back to the surface. When they emerged, the storm was gone. The sky over Gorgon 13 was clear for the first time since they'd arrived. The predators stood at the ridge, silent, watching. The pillar's light was steady gold now, and at its base, two symbols intertwined, the spiral of share and the bridge from the balance engine trial. Ruth smiled faintly. Looks like they believe we'll keep the promise. The council delegate extended his hand to Maya. For what it's worth, I do too. Maya shook it. Then let's prove it not to them, but to everyone else. The wind shifted, carrying the clean scent of rain on distant stone. Somewhere deep below, the Nahhevi's heart kept beating, slow and certain. For now, the storms were at peace.